Story points are one of the most misunderstood and misused terms with Agile teams, and it's no surprise that I've had a lot of viewers ask me to create a video on this topic. Now there's a lot to cover, so rather than just one video, I'm going to give you a series of videos where I cover everything from what a story point is, determining a team's velocity, and then subsequently using it to determine the team's long-term release plan. So in this first video, I'm going to cover off what a story point actually is and how it is used in Jira. Are you ready? Let's do it. So what is a story point? Well, it comes from an approach called relative estimation. And the big idea behind relative estimation is that it is quicker and easier to estimate if we do so by comparing instead of by deconstruction. So for example, if we had two product backlog items, it's a lot easier to compare the two and say one is the same as the other, or maybe one is bigger or smaller, instead of trying to take each item, break it down into little pieces, and figure out how much time will each piece take. So let me give you an example. Imagine I have product backlog item A and product backlog item B. Now, if we ask the team, let's compare these two items. Are they the same amount of effort? And they might say no. Product backlog item B is twice the amount of effort of product backlog item A. So if we were to give product backlog item A 1 point, what would product backlog item B be? 2 points, of course, because we're indicating that it's twice the effort. Now, what do I mean by effort? A common mistake that a lot of teams make is say, well, doesn't 1 point just mean 1 day? And that's not correct. So let me give you an example so you can see what the difference is between story points and time. Okay, so let's go back to my example of product backlog item A and product backlog item B, where we gave A 1 point and B 2 points because it's twice the amount of effort. Now let's say we had two developers and one developer is much more experienced than the other. Now the more experienced developer, if we were to ask them, okay, how much time will it take to do product backlog item A, they might say, oh, you know what, it takes me about half a day to do that. So if A takes half a day, how long would it take them to do B? Double that, okay, twice that. It would be a whole day. Now, on the other hand, if we were to ask the same question to the less experienced developer, they might say product backlog item A is going to take them 2 days. Okay, it takes more time because, again, they have less experience. So if A is going to take them 2 days, what will be? B will take them 4 days, twice the amount of effort. So the time is very different depending on who does the work, but the story points remain the same. Both agree that product backlog item B is twice the amount of product backlog item A. So I hope you can see there's a difference between time, which is what we would call absolute estimation, versus story points, which is relative estimation. So if you have a team that is calling one story point 1 day, you can go back to them and say, why are we calling it a story point? And the common response is that, hey, that's what all Agile teams do. So if your team is doing that, a suggestion, just call it a day. There's no need to call it story points, which would just add more confusion. Okay, so in summary, you can see that a story point is a relative estimate. And what's a relative estimate? It's where we are estimating by comparing items to one another. Now, why do Agile teams do this? It's because estimating by comparing is a much quicker and easier way to estimate. So for example, imagine we had more items to estimate. If we know that A is 1 story point and B is 2 story points, when we look at the next item, let's call it C, we're going to compare to those previous two. And we might say, C looks like it's about 3 times the size of B, but not quite. So we'll give it, let's say, 5 points. Now we move on to the next item. This one's a bit smaller, item D here. What's the easiest way to estimate that one when we're comparing? We might compare it to A and say, look, it's probably about half the size of A, so let's give it half a story point. And the last item here, E, how would we estimate that one? We might say, if we're comparing here, it looks like it's somewhere in between B and C. So if B was 2 points and C was 5 points, a number in between that might make sense is 3 story points. So you can see how this approach to estimating is much quicker because we did not need to get into the details about what's involved to implement these items. We didn't need to deconstruct them, as I said earlier. Now you might be thinking still, why bother using an approach which is quicker and easier? It's because when we adopt an agile approach, our requirements will emerge. They will evolve and change over time. So naturally, if our requirements are changing, what's going to happen to our estimates? They are also going to change. So as our requirements, our product backlog changes, we're going to need to re-estimate and reforecast. So it's very advantageous to have an approach where we can rapidly reforecast so that we can go back to stakeholders and give them an update on how things are progressing based on the changes that have occurred. Now that you understand what story points are, let's have a look at how they are applied in Jira. When using story points, we apply them at the product backlog level. So to apply them in Jira, all you need to do is just go to the backlog view and you'll notice the story points appear on the right. Now to update those points, just open up the issue, scroll down, and you will see the story points field. So you just click in it, change it to whatever the value should be, and tick to save. Now, a point to note, you'll see here that the field is called story points. And it's called story points because I'm using a company managed project. Now, on the other hand, if you are using what Jira calls a team managed project, let me show you one of those. Okay, so this one is a team managed project. You'll notice it's slightly different. So if I click on this product backlog item and then scroll down, the field is not called story point, but story point estimate. Now that's a subtle difference to note because, again, depending on the project type you use, it's a different field. And that means when you use other features within Jira, whether it's searching with JQL or creating an automated process with Jira automation or any of the other features, you'll need to make sure you pick the right field name. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you are using story points. So now you know what a story point is. In the next video, I'm going to show you how Scrum teams decide what the story point value should be for each of their product backlog items by using an approach called planning poker. So if you don't want to miss out on that, don't forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support us or you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you'd like to be notified when the next video comes out, hit that bell icon. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.